All. Hello everyone. So we have Chhavi. She has recently qualified for the FPM admission examination process, and she has been selected for one of the most prestigious IIM. So without wasting a lot of time and discussing about who Chhavi is and how come I came to know about her, let her introduce herself and have a brief idea about her background and also her strategy for examination. Chhavi, over to you.
Hello, sir. Actually, I have my background, my educational background has been that I've completed my schooling from my hometown, which is in Rajasthan. Then I went for higher studies to University of Delhi, wherein I completed my BCom honors from University of Delhi and masters from University of Delhi. I'm currently pursuing, which I'll be completing by May 2021. So regarding like how I got to know about this PhD and FPM and how it was, so actually I was quite clear from starting itself from my school days that I want to make a career in this academia. So I appeared for UGC NET exam, which is for the post of professor, in December 2019. That was my first year of masters. So I appeared in that and I qualified it assistant professor as well as JRF. Later, while I was searching for like how what next I have to do after masters, I got to know about this FPM through my elder brother who was pursuing MBA from one of the IIMs. So when he used to tell me what was this way the professors were teaching there, I was quite curious. I actually started searching for their profiles, for professor profiles, for faculty profiles, and I got to know that there's so much research they do. There are so many research papers they write, and therein I got to know that IIMs provide this have this program called FPM, which is equivalent to PhD, and that is one of the ways where we can learn about research and we can go into the career of academia. So that is when I searched about it on YouTube and I came across your channel, Simply Management. And then after that we talked and that was all that we started the preparation. So that's all. Yeah.
So there is kind of some, I don't know whether you call it misconception or kind of, fear that some of the aspects they told me that only those candidates who are from a premier, B schools or who have done their undergrads from a top university and masters also from top universities, only they get a chance to enter the FPM program of the IIMs. So, because you told me that you did your undergrads from DU and then you moved to your hometown, and you told me, so not officially, unofficially, we had a discussion about this informal. So, can you just share your experience that is it true or do you disagree with this perspective? And do you really believe that a master's degree from any institute has nothing to play a role in your selection or in your
Yes. Actually, I suppose that it does not really matter if we have the necessary knowledge. Like if we can prove in the interviews that we have knowledge. I have personally experienced this. That during the interviews when I was being asked questions, I guess they don't really ask. They don't just want to know the concepts that you know the concept or not, but they are actually looking for an understanding of the concept. How in deep we have gone into it, how deep, how in depth understanding we have of the subject. So I guess if we are confident about our knowledge, if we have not crammed up things and we have tried to make our concepts clear, so I guess that doesn't really matter because they have, otherwise I think they would have mentioned it earlier, like institutes would have mentioned it. They've just mentioned the eligibility. If we are meeting it, we can apply it, and I don't really think that it matters. What matters is our knowledge.
Yes. So, Javi, do you have a JRF in commerce or do you have a JRF in a different management or any other
uh,
stream?
uh, no sir, I have JRF in commerce.
Okay, and you applied for finance area, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So for those who are watching this video, you have to understand that you do not necessarily need to have a JRF in business management or something which is very much aligned to the business. Even a JRF in commerce makes you eligible, and also there are chances of you getting selected, provided as Chhavi has mentioned, you need to focus on your conceptual clarity, you need to focus on the topic, and you also need to have in-depth knowledge rather than just mugging up everything. Am I right, Chhavi?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so now just tell us about it. your journey of preparation, how you started preparing for FPM program, and then which all IIMs you applied, and then finally how you converted this prestigious program at.
Yeah, sure. So, while when I started about this, when I decided I have to do it and I have to do this FPM in finance. So initially, I started with the basics of finance, like whatever I studied in graduation and post graduation. I tried to. One thing is like we have studied it in the college, and one thing is to have in-depth study of it. So I actually focus that if there's someone who has a non-finance background, if that person asks me a question regarding a topic, then can I explain that person? In layman's term, how can I explain? So I did that kind of study. That was, I suppose, that is the only thing I focused on to have that kind of understanding of the subject. So that was which I started initially. I took all my post graduation grads work and I started reading it. And next, I came in contact with you, and you told me about, like, you told how I could proceed with the preparation. So, as you told about reading research papers, so I read a lot many research papers at that point of time. But so that was the initial thing. I focused on the base of finance and I read research papers in the starting. And what I think is that instead of reading research papers in all, for with a target to answer in interviews, or with a target to qualify an exam or something, to crack an exam, I guess it was more for an understanding, as you told that read it for an understanding, so that I could actually gather what is my research interest. Because in statement of purpose we are required to write a research interest, and the interviews expect that we know a lot about it. So in order to first have a confidence that this will be my research interest, I suppose I read, it is necessary that we read a lot many at least few research papers which are from different fields of finance, so I know which is more comfortable to me, which interests me more. So that is what I did. I read some research papers. Then after that, so as I was connected to the Super 20 group, which is a part of Simply Management. So therein, what was necessary for finance, as I was told, that statistics is a must. We should have a knowledge. In fact, for FPM, we need a knowledge of statistics. For finance specifically, it is crucial. So in that, Super 20 has a it had certain quizzes sessions and a lot many things which they taught us as a part of it, like the mentors at Super 20, Ankur sir and all, they taught us all the statistics. They covered the statistics topics, and they told us what are the topics, so I just tried to cover them all. Apart from what was taught in those sessions, I tried to cover what I read in masters and what I read in graduation. So I tried to cover all those things. So that was the statistics part.
Yeah. So within
After, yeah,
statistics, Chhavi,
yeah.
so what exactly you think are some of the important topics that somebody should know? So not everyone is part of Super 20 or have not joined or is planning for that group. Those of them who are not part of this group, what are some of the important statistical concepts or areas that you would recommend students from finance area, finance students should go through in order to make themselves more, familiar with those concepts and
Uh,
perspectives?
yes, so I suppose for finance specifically, most important is regression. That is one thing that we should know. Like, not merely the assumptions, like we don't have to cram it, of course, because they test our understanding again. They may give us situations in the interviews, and they may ask us questions that way, case study kind of questions. So we should know regression and hypothesis testing. All those tests where, like, T test, ANOVA, Z test, where they are used. And I suppose these are the most important one, the hypothesis testing and regression. Apart from that, of course, the basic statistics, that how we are doing sampling, what are the errors, how can we overcome those errors, and a lot many, like significance test, normal curves, the basics of the statistics, that is in the business statistics, basically that is the subject which we should brush up actually.
Any book or any material that you would recommend for finance as well as for statistics that you should try and read?
So for finance, actually, I read my books from which was in my college, so from University of Delhi. So there were few books, and
Recommend those books. Can you recommend those books, name of those books, or maybe
yeah, sure. One was authored by Professor Vanita Tripathi, and that was for security analysis and portfolio management. One book was authored by uh, it was a book for financial management by R.P. Rastagi, Professor R.P. Rastagi, and there was a book I considered buying. That was it was a book by Professor Prasanna Chandra. That is, I personally liked that book. I searched for it, and it was quite a comprehensive financial management book. So because my research interest was somewhat into financial management as well, so I tried to focus on that. So I guess that would. And for statistics, I mostly referred Andy Vora, Professor Andy Vora's book, which is again we got it from University of Delhi. And apart from that, I actually relied on Google for many of the things. So yeah, that was it.
That's very evident. In fact, most of the it's better to refer to Google sources for statistics, and of course
Yes.
you can appear for some mock tests and all, because you don't really need to go too depth. But yes, you need to have basic idea, understanding about what is regression, how it is done, and also other constructs which are related to this process. So regression, you should know the background equation of regression. You should also know the beta value. You should also know the R and R square thing. So the basics, as Chhavi has
Yeah.
also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was not like regression. We don't have to read in much depth, but at least if we are knowing the interpretation, at least we know how to interpret it. The basic thing, how to use it. Yeah.
So there is one question that is often being asked to me and requested by aspirants is like, how do we shape or how do we funnel down our research topics? So initially, when we had a conversation at the beginning, we were talking about financial literacy and all. So how do you then, channel and funnel down your research topic? How this whole process took place? Can you just share your experience?
Yeah, so initially I talked about financial literacy, about female executives, and a lot many things, and I was quite a bit into behavioral finance as well. So at that point in time, again I read research papers, and when I was told to read research papers, I tried to find out those which were related to my interest. So I used to see the topics that whatever title came in front of me that was into my interest, I started reading those. So while I started reading those, I realized there are some what I have been thinking to research. Something has been already written on it, but still they have some caveats in those research. There is something more that can be studied further. So that is where I got the idea that is where I filtered out my research interest. That what is already done, what now I have to do in there, and what innovation can I bring in that. So that was actually research papers helped me a lot in that case. And of course, like my interest was into behavioral finance and some this capital asset pricing theory of corporate finance, portfolio theory, and financial management. So while I wrote my research interest more on the side of behavioral finance, so I tried to read a lot of things about behavioral finance. So I didn't limit myself to that. Okay, these are the concepts. I'll just read them and I'll end it. Not that way. That is, if you just have to answer the question, it is good. But because I had to make a research and topic out of it, so I started reading whatever I could find about behavioral finance through Google. So if there was a topic, suppose there was a topic prospect theory, so I used to Google a lot many things. If there's any cases related to it, any examples, any real life examples we could relate. So I tried to do that in-depth study to finally come to a research topic.
Absolutely. Chhavi, so now coming back to the whole discussion about FPM admission process. So you must have applied to different times, across India, and you must have experienced different formats and different way of being interviewed. So how was your experience as being interviewed at IIM Kozhikode, where you have been finally got an admission? So how was your experience? How many panelists were there, and then how long was the interview? Just give us detail about your
Sure.
experience.
So initially that was a process that we applied to all those IIMs, and they were like a lot of requirement statement of purpose and all. So that was the process. Then when in the particularly in this IIM course interview, it was around I suppose 25 to 30 minutes interview, as of I remember. It
Mhm.
was around 25 minutes interview, and there were three panels, like three interviewers, and it was quite a good interview for me. Like I really answered a lot many questions, and I realized, I mean, what I gathered is that they were very cooperative. So they don't really want to, they want to test your knowledge, but they're also cooperative. They want to know what we know, what knowledge we have. So they are interested in knowing that. So my questions in the IIM Koiko's interview was around like they asked what was the subjects you like in masters, what were the subjects you like. So they started asking from that. So they started asking questions from that. They also asked questions from maths as well. 12 standards maths, some basic maths questions, and then they came to my research interest, research topic. So they didn't really went to the topic, the one particular topic that I had, but they went to behavioral finance, and they asked a lot many questions about topic of various topics, various theories, people, personalities in the behavioral finance. Who were the major personalities who brought this particular thing to the world? And there was also one thing which I would like to tell, that there are times when they ask questions in quite they don't really ask direct questions altogether. There are times in order to test your knowledge, they try to put some case study sort of thing, or they try to mold the questions in order to get the answer for that. So yeah, because I read, again I'm saying that for behavioral finance also I read papers. And please don't, I would like to tell that please don't think that these papers are something you have to read and uh, that this is a task that you have to do. If I suppose if someone will do like that, then they won't be able to get a lot out of it, because those research papers are, at this point in time, I couldn't really understand all of them, because of course they are like from the best journals, they're written from highly qualified professors, so I might not understand. So if I keep on focusing that I have to understand everything, that wouldn't actually meet the purpose. So I tried to take out what I could get out of it, what knowledge I could get out of it. I tried to understand that, and that really helped me in the interview. In the IIM Koikor interview, I remember there was a question regarding behavioral finance, and I quoted one research paper which I just read out of curiosity because I was very much curious. It was Professor Daniel Kahneman's paper, and I was just curious and I read it and I quoted that. So I guess that is what being curious helps.
Right. But sometimes you mentioned about research articles, reading research articles, and getting good out of those papers. So we did had a session on reading articles and understanding it. But for those who are not aware about those sessions, can you just read them about how you started reading articles, which all articles you sorted and shortlisted for your reading, and what was your strategy of completely reading an article? Did you start it from the beginning and ended it, or did you just read the content, major content, and so on? So what was your strategy?
Yeah, so actually, initially I used to target the articles which were in the top, which were published in the top journals, like A star, B, like whatever, and more than that, like of course I was targeting top journals, but also I was targeting some topics of my interest. If I love the title, if I like the title, if I get curious about the title, I used to study it. So that was the thing. I Because the papers are very long, some papers are extremely long ones. So I used to initially read the abstract. If in the initial reading of the abstract, if I'm able to easily understand it, or with a somewhat of terms I Google and I understand it, I go with that paper. Otherwise, I try to postpone that one. I used to take another one, because otherwise, if I keep giving my time to the tough ones, then I would end up having very less paper read. So that is why I used to go through the abstract. Then I just used to go, if I was comfortable with it, I used to go through introduction. Then further, I used to do a kind of skimming. So whatever new words I used to come through, like there may be some theory that they just mentioned that this is a theory and it's related to my topic of interest, or maybe just related to finance altogether. So I used to write them down, and then I used to Google them, all of them. So I used to Google them. Maybe I would write one-liners and note that what was that. Otherwise, I could just understand them. And then after the introduction, that was after the introduction is actually what I focused was on the methodology. So now the methodology was something that what I believe is we can't really get everything out of it. Means we won't understand that at this point in time, because but at least I got what the approach was being used in the methodology, what are the tests they are using. If I used to if there's some test which is new to me, I used to Google it again. what is it. So they were just like true attempts to understand the things. So I didn't find much
You
into the methodology.
you don't have to read
No.
everything, but you
Yeah.
need to have a basic idea about what
Yeah.
this topic, research topic is all
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
what methods they have used, and also what are the major findings, understanding that
Yeah.
this paper is
Yes.
giving as a.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so the introduction part, the methodology, and the conclusion, I suppose, is if you understand those things, like methodology, just a basic idea that what the approach has been used. So many a times in some papers they clearly write the approach in the very starting. I've seen. So I guess that helps. So we can get the approach and then the conclusion. So and also the limitations that they have in the paper. That is very important. Yeah.
One important questions as I really want to know from your perspective, because different people might have a different perspective. So people have been complaining like they have a JRF and that is why they are not getting a call. Some are claiming that they have a cat and they are not getting a call. So you applied across IIMs based on your preferences. Did this JRF came as a hurdle or as an advantage to you? Did you has there been a case where you didn't get a call even though you applied, or is it like you got call from all the IIMs? Just to let everyone know that this is not the case.
Yes, so I didn't really get call from all the IIMs that I applied, but I don't really think that the JRF could be a reason of it. There might be other reasons, maybe SOP or maybe any other reason, whatever. I can't really know that, but I don't think JRF is a reason because why I'm saying is that because I have got calls from other IIMs. There are a few IIMs that I've got calls from, and the other thing is that in the interview I didn't feel that they were trying to test me over this, that I have a JRF or I have a CAT or GMAT or something. So I didn't really find that thing. So I don't think there is any.
As there is no biases. It's just that many factors came into play when the shortlisting is done. Sometimes maybe different faculties sit separately and they do shortlist people because
Yeah.
they have certain criteria already set. So that could be a case. So it's not like Chhavi got majorly all the hands. The JRF or even a CAT or GMAT or any other score will not be a burden to you. Chami, one more thing that I would really like to know. So you started your preparation in year 2020, and then the whole process continued, and finally in 2021, you appeared for this FPM interview. So how long do you think an aspirant should aim for if he or she has to serious prepare for this examination? Also, since you are in the final year and you're managing your masters as well as you are appearing for FPM admission, so how challenging this could
Yeah, so sir, for this, I started in 2020, as you said. I talked to you while starting for the preparation. So sir, I suppose that because the applications start by December, the applications we have to fill the applications, and for some institutes it starts even before. So I suppose at that point in time we should have our research interest. It's better if we have a clarity of our research interest because we have to fill in the SOP, statement of purpose. So, sir, I suppose that a few months before, no, sir, actually, I believe that it is very different for each individual because
exactly?
it might be I took very long time, it might be I took very less. It depends. But yeah, I think that before the applications, what one should focus is on the research papers and the basic of the subject. So now that I started from probably I started reading about it from September 2020. With full focus for basics of my subject because I had my master's exam as well, so I had to manage all of that. So I started in September 2020, and then around November I decided my research topic. So I suppose that these are the two things which has to be done before the application: the research interest, that is reading some research articles, and the basics of the subject. Because if you don't have the basics of the subject, you can't put in the research interest. So after the applications are filled, because they also take some time to fill the applications. After that, I suppose that around 2 months of preparation, serious preparation, is enough, I suppose, and that it depends person to person. Now, who they take a lot in time for reading statistics, so but it's basically the thing is what one should focus, I suppose, is on how confident they are in their subject. So I guess more than knowledge, they have to be more confident about the subject. So if whatever questions are being asked, at least they are confident that okay, I have an understanding of this. I can tackle the question.
Absolutely. Regarding SOP, you remember like we had multiple kind of iteration, changed and made necessary changes again and again. So, what would be your suggestion? What are the major content that one should ensure when somebody is developing his or her SOP? What should be there? The major content that should be there in the one's SOP. How it should be presented, if I ask you.
Yeah. So, in statement of purpose, I suppose there is no point of exaggerating a lot of things, because there's no point in that. The people who are checking your SOP, they already know. They are really good at selecting people and doing that. So, I suppose there's no point of exaggerating. And the basic questions that has to be answered in SOP are why we have to pursue a PhD, and I suppose we should be quite true to it. No need of putting anything that we don't believe in. So why pursuing a PhD? That's a question we should first ask to ourselves, rather than answer just in for the sake of answering to the interview. So why PhD? What are what is different in me that I could be a uh, good person for this program, a good choice for this program. So those were that basically includes academic credentials, and if there's some extra courses we have done or whatever few of them, and then it majorly includes our research interest, that what we have to pursue out of it, and what is our main aim, what is our future goal about pursuing this program. I guess that sums it up.
Any other tips
But
that you would like to? Yeah.
yeah, yes, sir. One thing that I want to tell is, so one thing I want to tell that for JRF, you told that JRF CAT anything would work. So I would want to tell that please check whether the institute you're applying with JRF, because somewhere they don't take in JRF. For some, they have different criteria. Like for HR and OB, they have different criteria. So
Absolutely.
that so first initially check the eligibility before appearing for exams.
That,
And the other thing for SOP, one thing that I gathered after like we discussed and all of that I did. So one thing is reading the research papers would really help a lot. So make sure you read a lot, a few of them at least, and you don't rely on summing up the SOP at the end, because as you said, it requires a lot many, because at the point maybe you are satisfied with your SOP when you submit it, but later we'll realize while defending it in the interview that there were a lot many things that we forgot.
exactly.
So that is something I suppose that read about it a lot many times. Whatever, if we can Google anywhere, there are a lot of links, there are a lot of blogs. Try to read them all before putting it in this.
Did they ask you specific questions from your SOP, which you remember that you had mentioned there in your SOP, and they were like very particular about those?
There was one thing I mentioned about my internship, internship with Nestle. So they just asked me that, okay, you did an internship, in which month you did it? It was about that, and they didn't really. They came to that behavioral finance thing. So I mentioned in my SOP that I have an interest in behavioral finance. So now they asked me questions about who has contributed a lot to the behavioral finance, who is that personality who has contributed, and what has they contributed, and so they started with that. They stick a lot to it.
Basically, those who are the stalwarts and famous scholars in that
Yeah,
particular
yeah,
domain, one
yes,
should be aware
yes,
about it, and it's very there's a general knowledge that one should be aware about one's domain.
yes.
All right, Shavi, so any particular key, feedbacks or something that you would like, or tips that you would like to give to the aspirants that they must ensure that or take care of that while they are appearing or they are preparing for FPM admission? Because now, since you will be joining and you will be busy, so you might not be, available all the time. So that's something that you really think one should take care of when they are preparing for FPM admission.
Yeah, initially I would like to say that first, really plan that how you're going to proceed with the whole thing, like how you're going to apply, to what times you're going to apply, what, because everyone have certain slight different eligibility criteria. So because last moment panic is not really good. So plan the whole thing, how you're going to do it, and for particularly the preparation about the interviews. So I suppose that try to don't cram things, that won't really help. Trying to understand as much as you can, because it might be possible, what I suppose is that it might be possible you don't know many topics about your subject, but if you know a few with really good understanding, that would really help. So rather than learning everything of the subject, like trying to cover everything in the subject and cramming things, try to understand those. Try to have some real life examples of the concepts you are studying. Try to relate it to the real life. So you can actually explain it to anyone. So that would really help, I suppose.
We thank you so much and wish you best of luck. And we hope that soon you will finish your FM program and join one of the IIMs or any other B school that suits you, of course. And you will do really well in your academic career. So my best wishes for you. And of course, we'll stay in touch so that we can have further discussion about career prospects and so on. All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you so much.